Marcus sat alone in the small gray cell, staring at the dust that floated like quiet snowflakes in the beam of the single ceiling light. Tomorrow at dawn, the guards would lead him to the yard, and the warden would read the order that said his life had reached its final page. He had made mistakes, big ones, and the law had decided those mistakes were too heavy for forgiveness. Yet the memory that pinched his heart now was not the crime, but the wagging tail he had left behind the night police lights flashed red and blue. Buddy, the brown and white mutt with ears too big for his head, had watched him being taken away, whimpering like a baby looking for its blanket. For almost 2 years, Marcus had dreamed the same dream where Buddy jumped into his lap and licked away every worry. On this last evening, he whispered a request to the chaplain, asking if he might see his dog once more before the sun rose. The chaplain, a kind man with tired eyes, said he would try, though no one could promise such a gift. Hours crept by like slow ants crossing a mile-long picnic cloth while Marcus listened to the prison clock tick louder than thunder in his ears. At midnight, a soft knock echoed, and the warden entered with folded arms, his voice heavy but gentle as falling sand. He told Marcus that the request had traveled through phones and faxes, reaching the governor's desk just before office lights turned off. The governor, after reading the brief note, had paused, sighed, and scribbled a single word: approved. Tears Marcus did not know he still carried slid down his cheeks like tiny rivers carving rock. The warden added that a volunteer group had found Buddy at the city shelter, alive but thin, still wearing the faded blue collar Marcus had bought. They were on their way now, tires humming, wheels rolling through the night, bringing the dog to the prison gate before the first hint of dawn. Marcus hugged himself, half shaking from cold, half from hope, unsure if either feeling was real. He pictured Buddy's goofy grin and felt a warmth spread through his chest like sunrise washing over dark hills. All at once, the cell seemed less like a box and more like a waiting room between two worlds. The next hours would decide which world opened its door, but for the moment he simply breathed and waited. Behind thick walls, somewhere out on a highway, a dog's nose pressed against a window, guiding fate toward its unexpected turn. The eastern sky was still dark blue when a white van stopped outside the main gate, its headlights painting long yellow lines across the gravel. 2 volunteers stepped out, one cradling Buddy, the other carrying paperwork rustling in the wind. Buddy's ears perked as the night guards scanned the forms and unlocked the side door with a clang that echoed down the block. Inside the prison lobby, the dog sniffed every corner, pausing at a bench where families once waited, his tail sweeping the floor like a soft broom. The chaplain appeared and guided them through corridors that smelled of bleach and old stories. At last they reached the narrow corridor where Marcus's cell waited, and Buddy's nose twitched faster, as if following an invisible scent trail of memories. The guard unlocked the heavy door, and Marcus watched, heart pounding like parade drums. When Buddy saw him, the mutt barked a high, surprised note, then sprinted forward so quickly the blanket fell off like a cape dropped by a racing hero. The dog leaped into Marcus's arms, paws scratching but gentle, and the man laughed a real laugh for the first time in years, a sound bright and clear as bells. Tears met fur, and for a minute the cell felt like a tiny home filled only with love strong enough to bend iron. The warden allowed the door to be left open, giving them a small square of privacy that felt wider than oceans. Buddy licked the salty tracks on Marcus's cheeks, then rested, head on his lap, eyes shining with forgiveness. The chaplain quietly placed bread and water on a tray, but Marcus fed the crusts to Buddy, who ate delicately, tail tapping a happy rhythm. Outside, dawn crept over the walls, pouring gold through the barred window and turning the cell into a glowing lantern. The warden, moved by the scene, cleared his throat and asked the chaplain to fetch one more chair. Rules for a moment, bowed to kindness. They chatted about favorite parks and the time Buddy stole a sandwich and ran circles around the couch. Every story stitched a patch over the ripped fabric of regret, and Marcus felt stitches hold tight where guilt had once torn holes. He noticed the guards listening, some nodding, their stern faces easing as if reminded they too had pet photos on their phones. In that fragile hour, the prison turned into a place of shared hearts rather than locked doors, a quiet miracle nobody expected. Yet the sun kept climbing, and each brighter ray reminded them that miracles, like songs, eventually fade into silence. While Marcus stroked Buddy's fur, the warden's office phone rang with a shrill note that sliced the gentle hush of the morning. He excused himself, leaving the door ajar, and hurried to the desk where a red light blinked like a warning beacon. On the other end spoke the governor's aide, voice tight with urgency, asking whether the final procedure had begun. The warden answered no, explaining that a last visit was in progress, the condemned man and his dog sharing precious minutes. The aide breathed out, then shared news that rattled the warden more than any riot alarm ever had. Overnight, a journalist had posted the story of Marcus's simple request, and by dawn thousands of readers had signed a petition calling for review. The article included an old photo of Marcus hugging Buddy in a sunny backyard, both grinning like children free on the first day of summer. Comments poured in, telling how people believed second chances could grow from honest regret and steady love. The governor, awakened by staff, read letters from strangers who offered to foster, hire, or counsel Marcus if mercy was granted. Moved by this wave of public compassion, the governor convened an emergency call with the parole board even before sunrise painted the Capitol dome. They examined records showing Marcus had studied, worked in the kitchen, and earned certificates that marked real change. After fierce but brief debate, the board voted 4-1 to commute the sentence to life with a possibility of parole in 10 years. The aide now instructed the warden to delay everything until official papers arrived by secured fax within the hour. The warden's hand trembled as he replaced the phone, aware that history sometimes turns on a single heartbeat of kindness. He returned to the cell, finding Marcus teaching Buddy to shake, unaware of the storm swirling outside those four walls. The warden knelt to the dog's level, scratching behind its ear, then met Marcus's questioning eyes with a half-smile. He said there was new information and asked Marcus to wait a little longer, promising explanations as soon as he could give them. Marcus agreed, puzzled but calm, focused on Buddy's gentle breathing, each rise and fall telling him to hope but not yet celebrate. The clock kept ticking, but this time its hands carried the fragile weight of possibility rather than doom. In some unseen corner of the world, printers warmed, ink dried, and fresh signatures prepared to outrun destiny. 45 minutes later, a guard hurried down the corridor, waving a packet of papers still hot from the fax machine, edges curling like toast. He handed them to the warden, who scanned the bold heading, "Execution Stay and Commutation Order," stamped with the governor's blue seal. A hush spread through the staff, the kind that falls when fireworks suddenly brighten a dark sky. The warden unlocked Marcus's cell once more and entered, Buddy padding alongside as if sensing big news wagging behind the man's steps. Marcus stood, confusion knitting his brow, until the warden spoke the words he never expected to hear again. "Your life has been spared." For a full 10 seconds Marcus could not move. Only Buddy reacted, jumping in excited circles that thumped into the warden's polished boots. Tears sprang anew, but this time they were light tears, bubbles rising instead of stones sinking. The warden explained the decision, the petition, and the board's vote, while Marcus blinked, absorbing each sentence like sun through ice. He heard the conditions: life sentence, possible parole after 10 years, continued good behavior, and nodded sincerely at each one. The chaplain clapped his hands softly, whispering a prayer of thanks that danced into the dusty light. Guards, moved by the moment, offered silent thumbs-up signs before returning to posts, the usual tension replaced by rare smiles. Marcus knelt to Buddy and promised in a shaky voice that they would walk in grass again someday. The warden, clearing his throat, said Buddy could stay for a few more hours while transport to a local foster home was arranged. A nearby animal rescue group had already volunteered space, promising daily visits for Marcus if future regulations allowed. News swept the prison, and even men in distant blocks cheered, banging cups on bars to celebrate mercy. Outside, reporters gathered, cameras ready to capture any glimpse of the dog who had moved a governor's heart. A guard asked Marcus if he wanted to release a statement. He shook his head, saying the only statement worth making was to keep changing for the better. He spent the next hour writing a letter to the petitioners, thanking strangers for believing that wrong choices did not forever erase good souls. Buddy lay beside him, snoring softly, each tiny snort reminding Marcus that small lives can carry big purposes. Above them the sun climbed higher, and for once its heat felt like a promise rather than a countdown. Days turned into weeks, and Marcus quickly filled each one with study, work, and letters exchanged with Buddy's foster family. They sent photos of the dog chasing tennis balls across green fields, ears flapping like tiny flags in the wind. Those snapshots hung on Marcus's wall beside certificates earned from carpentry and counseling classes. Whenever sadness whispered, he traced Buddy's printed paw print with a finger and remembered that change was possible. He volunteered as a tutor in the prison school, helping younger inmates with fractions and simple stories, discovering patience he never knew he had. Guards noted his calm influence, and fights in his block dropped, replaced by quiet chess games and shared crossword puzzles. On weekends, the chaplain arranged courtyard visits where Buddy could come inside the outer yard, separated by a chain fence but close enough for belly rubs. Each visit recharged Marcus like fresh batteries, powering his promise to walk straight lines through every day. 5 years passed, and on the anniversary of the commutation, the warden called Marcus to the office for news. The parole board had advanced his review to the following summer because of outstanding behavior and community impact reports. Marcus felt both thrill and fear swirl together, but he steadied himself by picturing Buddy waiting at a park gate. He doubled his efforts, leading a new dog training program that paired shelter animals with willing inmates for basic obedience classes. The program reduced tension and taught responsibility, turning loud cell blocks into spaces of hopeful barking and laughter. Local news stations aired segments showing inmates teaching dogs to sit and stay, and the public praised the project. Letters poured in again, this time offering jobs to graduates who had mastered patience through caring for another life. Marcus kept none of the spotlight for himself. Instead, he handed credit to every man who bent to tie a leash or refill a water bowl. When Buddy visited, he demonstrated new tricks for the cameras, giving the story a full-circle glow that made viewers cheer at home. The day before the parole hearing, Buddy's foster family sent a short video of the dog running toward the camera, stopping only to lick the lens. Marcus watched it 3 times, each viewing adding another layer of courage to his resolve. That night he slept soundly, dreaming not of walls but of open fields where both man and dog could race the breeze together. The parole room was small, just a table, 3 chairs, and a microphone buzzing like a lazy bee. Board members reviewed files while Marcus waited, hands folded, head high, Buddy's photo tucked into his pocket like a secret compass. They asked about remorse and goals, and Marcus answered honestly, never hiding the pain he had caused. He spoke of the dog training program, of tutoring math, of learning that respect grows when you feed it daily like a plant. He finished by saying he could not change the past but could build a future where his lessons served others. The board recessed, leaving Marcus alone for 12 long minutes that felt like walking across a narrow bridge in fog. When they returned, the chairperson read the decision, parole granted, effective at month's end, with community service and job placement conditions. Marcus exhaled a breath he had been holding for years, tears flashing but not falling, held back by steady pride. Within days, legal paperwork cleared, and on a warm August morning, he stepped through the main gate, free clothes on his back, sky wide and blue above. Buddy waited in the parking lot, paws dancing on hot pavement, tail whipping so fast it seemed a blurred fan. The dog leaped into his arms amid cheers from volunteers and the quick beat of 2 joyful hearts. Marcus's first act was to kneel, clip on a bright new leash, and walk with Buddy across the lot toward a future no longer barred. Over the next months, he worked at the animal shelter, housing dogs that needed steady hands and gentle voices. He rented a small apartment with a patch of yard where Buddy could chase butterflies at sunset just like in their promise. Schools invited him to speak about choices, and children listened, eyes wide, as Buddy performed a paw shake that stole every show. Each evening, Marcus wrote in a journal, marking days not by mistakes made but by kindness delivered, meals served, homework checked, fences mended. On the 1-year mark, the governor visited a shelter event and shook Marcus's hand, thanking Buddy for office smiles. Reporters asked what message he hoped people took from his story, and Marcus answered that mercy and responsibility must walk side by side like man and dog on a morning path. He added that anyone, given love and purpose, could change direction, turning dead ends into doorways. As the sun sank behind them, Buddy leaned against Marcus's leg, and together they watched light fade, sure that tomorrow would rise paved with chances to keep doing good. At sunrise 2 bright springs after his release, Marcus watched Buddy snore softly on the couch, paws flicking through harmless meadow dreams. The day honored his 2nd year of freedom, and he felt a deep need to repay the generous river town that had welcomed him. Shelter wages and small school talk tips let him rent a worn brick warehouse by the quiet river bend, soon covered in sunflower yellow paint. In a week, it would open as Buddy's haven, a bright room where shy kids could read to rescue dogs and learn that patience is quiet power. Volunteers of all ages arrived with boxes of books, leashes, beanbags, rugs, and even cookies, their chatter ringing like bells. Marcus measured shelves, drilled hooks, tested gates, and reminded everyone that each corner must feel safe. At noon, the mayor, smiling wide, snipped a red ribbon while Buddy sat proudly in a blue therapy dog vest, tail sweeping like a flag. Families entered, and kids sat on soft rugs, whisper reading dragon tales and pirate quests to eager furry ears. An elderly veteran, hands shaking from old memories, smiled as Buddy rested a warm head on his knee and the tremor eased. Local cameras filmed, but Marcus pointed praise toward neighbors who traded weekends for paint and progress. After closing, he swept the pine floor, humming an old lullaby, stopping every few strokes to scratch Buddy's chin. They walked home under pink clouds streaked with orange, and Marcus marveled that such a jagged road had led to this calm evening. He remembered the cell clock's harsh tick and vowed to pass each fresh chance to someone still trapped behind bars. That promise sparked a plan: night workshops for teens, mixing skills with dogs that never judge. He printed bright flyers offering carpentry, coding, and calm breathing, all free. Buddy watched the printer spit out each page, barking a single encouraging note as if to say, "Good idea." The first class filled quickly, and Marcus moved between benches, guiding saws, smoothing edges, fixing code, and cheering every small win. Students left glowing, hands full of birdhouses and fresh confidence, while Buddy trotted around collecting pats and nosing projects. That night Marcus wrote that hope grows tall when watered by sweat, shared tales, and wagging tails that never quit. Before sleep, he told Buddy they would rise early and keep tending the garden of second chances, because seeds need steady sun and watchful hands.